Sometimes we conflate and inflate the difference between intuition and ignorance. And oftentimes we're very doubtful of ourselves and our abilities and what we believe and what we think is right and wrong. But the reality is that our greatest intuitions are oftentimes mislabeled and inflated to something of ignorance, when rather our greatest intuition is rather something that is actually something pretty accurate, but oftentimes not precise. But I think that's okay, and I think that's part of the whole process of using intuition to your advantage and productivity and through the things you do every single day.
And who, at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Welcome back to the Winter Arc Podcast. This is September the 6th and journal entry 5. So today I kind of want to talk about the difference between ignorance and intuition, and oftentimes how we kind of confuse the fact that our greatest intuitions are oftentimes not ignorance. And what do I mean by that? So, like, for instance, when we are trying to come up with an idea for ourselves, maybe it's a business idea, maybe it's a podcast idea, maybe it's just content that you're making for YouTube, or maybe it's a book that you're writing, right? There's different things that we do when we're doing these things, and when we're doing maybe it's just a hobby now, but maybe tomorrow a business, right? We have a certain intuition within ourselves that make us interested in this one thing, or make us interested in the thing that we want to build, right? Like, for instance, there's always this gumption within ourselves and a knowing of, I want something and I want to do X, Y, Z to get it, right? But where does that come from? Where does that intuition come from? And I think it comes from the motivation of just pure innovation. So, like, for instance, a good example would be with the fact that, when I think about an idea for a podcast, or when I think about an idea for a piece of content for YouTube, I'm always thinking of, what feels right in this edit, or what feels right for this content, or what feels right with the name of this. And so oftentimes I don't think that intuition can actually be measured, because oftentimes we start to doubt ourselves when we don't trust our intuition. Like, for instance, one big thing that I really get annoyed about with other people, and, I'm not trying to sound ignorant, and maybe I am ignorant for this, but, this is the whole process of trying to figure out what the difference between ignorance and intuition is. But the thing that I get really annoyed about other people is that they go through tons and tons and tons of different ideas, and they never pick an idea because it's not grand enough. It's not big enough. It's not good enough. It's not as catchy, or whatever it is. It could be an idea for a business name. It could be just a general idea for a new product for a business. It could be a new podcast. It could be a piece of content that you want to put on Instagram. But guess what? They never take action. These people never take action, and they never actually build something or ever try to create something, because guess what? They're stuck in this loop of always doubting themselves and thinking, this isn't good enough. This isn't like what I saw. Well, guess what? You aren't your favorite creator. Let's just be honest. Like, for instance, there's tons of people that I follow on YouTube, Instagram, as we all do, and there's certain things that inspire us and make us want to create. And some of us, we're just okay with just simply watching, and that's okay. We aren't our favorite creators. And what do I mean by that? Oftentimes, we kind of mistake ourselves for someone else. What I mean is that we kind of have this idea of it has to look a certain way, or it has to match this creator, or it has to match how this YouTuber makes his content, or it has to match how this business is doing it, or it has to match how so-and-so is doing it. But that's honestly just a piece of what perfectionism is. It's actually a comparison issue. And the problem is that these people, they look at everyone else and what everyone else is creating, and they look at their own work, and they look at their own ideas. And guess what? They give up, or they don't take action because they're not willing to follow their intuition and actually just create something. Because sometimes I heard this analogy recently, and it's actually just so foundational and so inspiring kind of to think about this, because it's just plainly true. So when you first turn on an old spout, right? Let's say it's like an outside spout for like garden hoses and stuff like that. When you if it hasn't been turned on in a while, what should you expect? Should you expect clear water to come out of it? No, if it hasn't been turned on in a while, you're going to actually expect rust and random, like, gross things to come out of the pipes. Why? Because it sat there stagnant for who knows how long. And so this is the same idea that you should think about when it comes to intuition and creativity. The first time you put out something, guess what? It's not going to be perfect, but you followed your intuition. And so do you know what that's going to get you? It's going to get you a realization of what works and what doesn't. And that is true for yourself, because guess what? You can't copy a creator. Sure, you can. You can use AI to just copy what other people are doing, but it will never be yours. It will always be theirs. And so that's the thing that I want to kind of encourage you about, of the fact, if you're trying to create, or if you feel stuck, or if you feel like you just feel ignorant, it's not ignorance. It's just cringiness. And it's okay to be cringy. This is something that I'm trying to tell myself right now, especially on X, because I don't have any followers or anything, but I keep posting stuff for this podcast and stuff that's on brand for this podcast about productivity and meaning and what it means to be productive in this day and age. But the reality is that I'm okay with admitting that, you know what, my ex tweets, or whatever you want to call them, are going to be cringy. Why? Because they're literally a couple sentences trying to motivate people for just the fact of staying on brand. Like, they're going to be cringy. And the first tweets and the first X posts that I make are going to be cringy. The first social media posts that I make for this podcast eventually are going to be cringy. The first episode of this podcast and all these journal entries that are the first journal entries ever are probably going to be cringy, probably going to be viewed as cringy. But what am I going to do? Am I going to let the fear of being cringy, or the fear of feeling like that it's not perfect enough, stop me from posting it? No, I'm going to turn on the old spout, and I'm going to let the rust and let the dirt fall out, and then eventually finally get the clear water and get clarity of where I want to go, and get clarity of what kind of production I want to make, and what kind of videos I want to make, and what kind of podcasts I want to produce. And so it's just the fact that we have a choice to either be ignorant, which is to not take action, which is to never turn on the spout and never let the rust and the dirty water fully be filtered out by the clear water eventually. Or we can take action and be intuitive and realize, you know what, I'm going to be cringy. I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to build something that isn't perfect the first time. And honestly, it's never going to be perfect, because we're always growing. But it's just the idea that it's not going to be perfect the first time, but your intuition is going to teach you, and your intuition is going to show you how you can improve based on just the fact that you're going to learn something every single time you press record, every single time you write a letter, right? Every single time you write a word, every single time you write a sentence, every single time you write a paragraph, every single time you put your hands to work on whatever you're trying to create or build in a company. And that's just the reality I wanted to leave you guys with, because guess what? It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be perfect. This isn't aesthetic. This process isn't aesthetic, but productivity can be beautiful in the midst of the messiness if you're willing to be consistent, because guess what? Consistency is the only thing that's going to make your intuition rise to the occasion. And obviously, just your creative flow. Like, I'm so thankful when I can finally get into creative flow. But in order to get into the creative flow, the consistency part has to start. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. This has been September the 6th, Journal Entry 5, and have a great night, guys. Bye-bye.